family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. As I've always told you, anti-black racism has bipartisan support, and for a few generations now, it's also had bilingual support too. Whether it be the racist Latino members of the LA City Council or Senator Tuberville, you don't see politicians of different ethnicities making it a point to dump on Asians or Jews or LGBT people. Black people are the ones who they make it a point to hate, not because we did anything against them, but just because. Yeah, the Black-Brown Alliance, it's dying a horrible, screaming, grisly death. Again. I would love to say that this is yet another nail in the coffin of the Black-Brown Alliance, but that thing's already got so many nails in it, it's made out of steel at this point. The three racist Latino members of the LA City Council are scrambling for cover, but they're not alone. You know who else has also been in hiding? The bootlicking black cable TV personalities and the corrupt bought and paid for Negro community leaders. You know, the ones who have spent the last 50 years talking about a Black-Brown alliance. They've been proven wrong for the umpteenth time. Oh yeah, a couple of them have been trying to do some damage control. They have no choice but to acknowledge that this incident happened, but they refer to it in specific terms, as if this story doesn't go any further than Martinez, De Leon, and Cedillo. Like this is just an LA story, and not a national problem. These were the people who told us to deny what we have been seeing and living for decades. They were playing the game. The same white supremacists who empowered and protected trash like Nuru Martinez and her racist pals are also the same icy political forces who have these Negro sock puppets on strings. But now, this incident having come to light, they've been silenced. Oh yeah, you look at their Twitter feeds and that pretty much tells the story. Joy Reid, she's decided that she's going to be sticking to the "we've got to keep control of the Congress in November," that's what she's doing. And Tiffany Cross-Eyes, she's just as bad if not worse. At least Joke Reid claims that she was on vacation. Permanent vacation from reality is more like it. But in the case of Tiffany Cross-Eyes, not only is she not talking about the story out of LA, you look at her Twitter feed, the last time she made a post on Twitter, she was asking, whose indigenous land are you on? What indigenous land do you occupy? Well, I'll tell you right now, as a descendant of one of the people who built this country, no one's land. This is my land. I'm native to this place. But what you see is Tiffany Cross-Eyes is doing everything that she can to make sure she doesn't say anything about this, and her silence is deafening. See, this is supposed to be what the white media wants you to think are your representatives speaking for you. But the most important issues of the day they don't say anything about because, well, they know who actually butters their bread, and that being the case, they're not about to offend their white media or DNC paymasters. So the old dead black media is remaining in their crypt, at least until they think it's safe to stick their heads up. But now with this incident having come to light, they've been silenced. Nobody's talking that black-brown crap now. Well, they're not talking about it anymore. All of a sudden, they're trying to sound like us, at least to a point. The phony Kumbaya riff is dead. See, the new voices of black media, your media, we have not and will never have to change our positions on the issues or what we say about it, because what we say reflects reality. These bootlicking Negroes who work for these white media outlets, they have to change what they say in order to try to hold on to whatever ragged shreds of credibility they want to tell themselves they still have. But the lip service they pay to the truth is weak, because not even one of these old bootlicking Negroes will admit that they were wrong for all the black and brown sloganizing talk they had done. After something like this, at the very least, they ought to have the decency to take responsibility for what they told people existed when it didn't, but they're not going to. Well, the elephant in the room won't go away just because they refuse to acknowledge it. Yes, Martinez and her racist amigos need to all resign, but these black misleaders, be they on TV or in print or in our communities, they must also resign from public view. They too need to shut up, sit down, and never speak again. Now this racist creep Nuri Martinez, she said she wanted to beat down a 2-year-old child. Let me repeat that for you. She said she wanted to physically do violence against a 2-year-old child. A kid who's barely out of Pampers. This is psychopathic racism. You want to know what that term means? Nuri Martinez is a perfect example of it. And then people wonder why walking excrement like George Zimmerman targets black children like Trayvon Martin. This is an expression of culture that we're talking about here. This is a manifestation of culture that causes this. If you refuse to call out the blatant, violent, pervasive anti-black racism that runs throughout so much of Latin American culture, then you're not actually trying to address the problem. And all these Negro bootlicks you've seen who are trying to get you to forget how they used to constantly wave the Black-Brown Alliance flag, they're tiptoeing around that one. They want to make it seem like this is all some sort of localized phenomenon, like these racist city council members had been in the U.S. for too long. That's the problem. They've been around the Republicans too long or something. When the truth is, they brought this racism with them from south of the border. And we must have a zero-tolerance policy for anyone who talks like this Martinez degenerate did. You talk about how you want to harm a child? Someone like that has no place in civic government and no place in society. You talk about harming a black child, and that's a line you don't cross. That's a transgression you don't get to come back from. Anybody else get caught talking about harming a child, and there would have been a police investigation opened, they'd be prosecuted. But of course, so long as you're talking about harming black children, it's okay. Mike Bonin, the LA city councilman whose adopted black child was the subject of this racist tirade, Bonin went before the LA public yesterday and he said that Martinez needed to give her resignation before she gives an apology. And the white media wasn't running up in his face asking him to forgive. They only do that with us. See, these other folks, these other communities, when somebody wrongs them, they don't talk about forgiveness. They talk about punishment. And the media doesn't try to coerce or otherwise maneuver them into some sort of forgive the person who wronged you narrative. Same way the white media is not trying to dig up or remind people of whatever other dirt Martinez, De Leon, and Cedillo have been part of. There's no calls to start a probe to look into the LA County Federation of Labor's collusion with these three racist council members. You had that Herrera creep talking openly about how to rig the city council. He was in there with them. There is a clear media offensive across the board to try to limit the scope of this entire discussion. And it's obvious, even to Martinez and her pals, that that's what they're trying to do. That's why all of them are refusing to resign. Herrera was different because the labor unions are more susceptible to anger from their members than Los Angeles' city government is. Martinez was taking the most heat, so she figured she might as well go ahead and step down as council president at the least, because that would help her to change the headline. That was her strategy. Got to get a different headline up there. And the white media tried to help her out by putting in all their headlines that she had resigned. But what the white media didn't count on was that people read the fine print too, and they saw that Martinez had only stepped down as president of the council, but she had not resigned from the council. People realized that there was a big difference. She was still there. So since that ploy didn't work, yesterday Martinez said that she was going to take a leave of absence to spend more time with her family. Basically, she's going to hunker down at home and hope this all blows over. On a side note, Jim Crow Joe finally awoke from his Metamucil-induced coma, and after seeing the righteous fury of the people of Los Angeles at their city council meeting, Jim Crow Joe finally spoke up on this issue, but only when he was sure that it was safe to do so. And now he's saying that the three city council members from La Raza should resign. Well, that's Biden for you, pulling up the rear on the few occasions when he even knows what's going on. So we've gone from Joe Biden wagging his finger at the black community and telling us we better figure out how to get along with the Hispanics, to him now saying that practically all the Hispanics on the Los Angeles City Council should resign because they can't get along with black people. Yeah, everyone who had been talking foolishly are being exposed now, and they're being forced to eat their words. But the lesson for black people to take away from all this is, it is not a victimless crime for you to be delusionally aspirational. That's what that whole Black-Brown Alliance thing was about. It was an aspiration. Black folks knew that it wasn't real, because in order to have a partnership, you gotta have somebody who wants to be a partner with you. Aspirations can be fine as long as you're steadily moving toward that goal. But if you're not moving anywhere at all and you just keep clinging to this aspiration, then it becomes a waste of time, and it becomes deadly when you decide that you're going to try to live by an aspiration. Because an aspiration is not real. It is a hope. for something to be real, and you'll die if you try to live in an aspiration. This is the elephant in the room that nobody wants to have to talk about. Oh, but that elephant's been dancing a jig the last couple of days now, hasn't it? Well, I for one don't want to hear anyone say that they're shocked by all this. If you say that, then that tells me you get your information from the white media, and that includes their Negro bootlicking puppets. Over here in the grassroots, we live in the real world. We are disgusted by what the racist Latino politicians have said, but we're not surprised. We've been talking about this for the longest time, and we will continue to talk about it until it stops. You didn't need to wait until now to know that there was a problem. You didn't need to wait until there was a recording with damning admissions on it. All you needed was to be honest about what we've seen for over 80 years now. Though for some folks, honesty is the hardest thing in the world. Good day, and be one.